If you haven't watched my YouTube channel, you can subscribe. It's called Be Transformed. And today I have a very important guest. His name is Father Marty Nochi. We started together in the Archdiocese of Baltimore. He was a priest, or he's a priest, but he's not in ministry like me, or different. For different situations, he decided to step down for other reasons. But today I invited him to be part of my YouTube channel to be transformed and to share some of his insights, his struggles, his joys, his difficulties that he had to embrace in this transitioning from a priestly life to a secular world. I think he's gonna have something to say, but it's gonna be very interesting. Keep watching. As I always said, be healthy, stay healthy, and help someone to be healthy. And something very, very, very important. Allow me to share my experience with you all. Subscribe, red button over there, and share my videos. All right, I will see you with my friend Father Marty Nochi, or I can say Marty Nochi. So there is a word that I like to use today, or more than a word, is a man of God. And that's how I would like to introduce you. That you're a man of God that has been serving a lot of people, transforming a lot of people. But before I say so many things, I just want you to tell people who you are and a little bit of your experiences. So this is my friend Marty Nochi. So welcome to my channel, To Be Transformed. I think we all have to be transformed in some way, otherwise we are dying.
We had to be transformed just to get to this point.
Oh my gosh, yes.
It's unfortunate we can't tell them where we are, but I could see a roller coaster back there.
Oh geez, you are gonna make me in trouble now.
I didn't say, I just said there's a roller coaster. There's lots of parks.
True.
Oh, so man of God, that's a lot of pressure.
Oh, now, wow. Well, somehow we are men of God and women of God, or childs of God, we are created by Him. That's my hope, right?
However, yeah. That's what we believe and hope and try to live into. That's the hard part, living into it.
That is so true. So when we are in formation, they forms us in a certain way to think in a specific way, basically believing in a certain way, and you guide people in that direction. But when you transition, how has been that transition from your beliefs, from your ministry, to the point that you are today?
I was, you may have seen the post I did on Instagram yesterday, because one of the first things I was asked by our bishop at that time, first of all, I don't go by father. I haven't been father in 2.5 years. And have no interest in returning to that. So,
okay.
But I was asked by our bishop about, where's God in all this? But again, based on what you just said, we're conditioned and trained in a certain way. And so if God doesn't appear in that way, it's hard for people to see that there's possibility beyond that box that we're trained and conditioned in. And I said, the irony of leaving for me was that I learned more about faith and trust by leaving than I ever did while I was in ministry. But I mean, I would expand that even further. I think all of us are conditioned in many different ways from the time we're kids through education. And so formation church was no different. It was just another form of conditioning in some ways to how you think and how you believe. But it had become so small for me that I had to leave. It wasn't my life to live. I mean, I could honestly say 2.5 years later, it was not my life to live. I'm not sure it was ever my life to live. As a man of God, as a person of faith, which I still believe I am, that's still very much a part of who I am, just in a very different way than that both of us had been living for me for 15 years. 20 if I count formation and all that, over 20 years. So it's just learning a different mindset and expanding that understanding, that thinking process. So and who God is, a bigger idea of who God is.
Yeah, and we don't want to get to the definition of who God is
Oh.
because that would be too much, right?
Yes.
So something that I admire in what you just said, and it's a slightly difference. Actually, there is a big difference between your transition and my transition because you made the choice. You made that choice based on a discernment process and listening. Actually, before the interview, we were talking about those voices that we constantly hear, and for me, well, because my choices as well forced me in some way to be out of ministry. So the transitions are different, but those difficult transitions. What has been what have been the most difficult things in this transition for you?
Oh, that's a tough question because I what I had just said about learning about faith and trust, I think has also been one of the most difficult things for me as well, because as you know, you have to begin to rely on other people. You have to begin to ask for help and seek out other people that might be able to help move you along in different ways on a very limited understanding. I mean, I likened it to, if anyone is watching, one of my favorite movies is Shawshank Redemption. And there's an old man in there who's eventually released from prison after 40 years or something like that. And he eventually goes on to commit suicide. He doesn't know how to adjust to life and what it had become. And I liken my own experience to that way in many ways, because I think it is like getting out of this prison that I created for myself over the course of my life. And now, how do I live? Like, I don't know how to be a person beyond how I had been trained and conditioned. And that's, I mean, I was already 40 some years old, late 40s at that point. And I have no idea, like, well, now what do I do? What do I do with myself? I mean, I was lucky. I mean, I was able to do a sabbatical for a year on an organic farm, Bethlehem Farm in West Virginia. And that at least helped reground me in many ways and stay connected to my faith. But it was, I also knew it was in between that I eventually was going to have to move on from there and start to make choices and decisions for my life. When we were so used to people making decisions for us, which we all love. Who doesn't like having decisions made for them?
Make it life easier in some
Yeah,
way.
exactly. And why would you want to buck that when we're doing everything for you?
Correct. I think you make a very important point. First, asking for help, and I think that I was watching one of your posts on Instagram the other day, which in the description I will put his Instagram so you can follow him as well, and I will put my Instagram as well, which is Be Transformed 101. Funny, right? Be Transformed 101. And he was mentioning that the transition and the difficult things that we have in life is asking for help, and it's something that you have been learning lately. That has been like a struggle, and I believe, well, I struggle myself also because I want to do everything by myself.
Yeah.
First of all, because I have a lot of pride sometimes, and
Yeah.
I think we all have. And asking for help is like, gosh, we actually increase or put ourselves in a better place when we have the courage to ask for help. So can you encourage people that that's okay, that when they are struggling to go and ask for help?
It was a relief when I finally asked for help. What eventually led me to leave in January of 19 was I was literally getting sick. Physically sick, and I couldn't breathe. I had a hard time breathing. It felt like something was constantly on top of me, and I was crying constantly, like just for no reason at all. I just found myself crying, and I still remember I had gone to Ocean City for a couple days, and as I was driving back, as I got to the Bay Bridge, I could begin to feel that heaviness within me again and start crying because I was coming back to that life. And I don't know if it was that day or I probably waited a few days knowing myself before I called and I said, I gotta leave, I gotta take a leave, I gotta do something because this is literally making me sick and I don't know what else to do. To the point, I mean, now looking back, that I had friends, I had family that were concerned that there was something physically wrong with me, whether I had cancer or something like that. But going through it, I didn't know what was happening to me. I just started to feel like, I started to feel like I was living a lie. That's how it started to feel for me in early January that year. And as I went through that process of transition, it's harsh to say it, but I literally felt like I was doing violence towards myself, living a life that was not mine to live.
And going back to that transition, we receive a lot of formation. You know, myself, I studied in Colombia, I studied in Spain, I studied here, and it seems that you had to read so much and learn so much. And then you are out and you say you don't know what to do with yourself, and it's like a way to how can I reinvent myself? And that's basically one of the reasons that I named my channel Be Transformed, because how can I reinvent myself? We have so much to offer. Because let's be honest. Those years of experience, you had 20 years of experience, 15 years ministering to the people of God. Some experience comes, some wisdom had to be there, and we cannot just put that in the trash can and say, oh, it didn't happen, right?
It's done, yeah.
It's done in some way. So how do you use right now that wisdom, that experience, that insight to inspire other people, to help other people? I think you mentioned before the interview a little bit of coaching, but you have spiritual knowledge, you have theological knowledge, philosophical knowledge, psychological knowledge, etc., etc. And maybe you can help us a little bit with your background as well. I know you are a teacher as well. Mm-hmm. I met you being a teacher as well. So it might, give some insights for people that are watching and might be transformed.
I am a extremely learned person because I'm curious and I love to learn. And if I get hooked on a subject, I just take off. And even in the process of formation, it was probably much more the theology and what we were talking about, who is God. It was probably that kind of stuff that kept me going much more than living the life of a priest that people are familiar with, because I couldn't get enough of it. And when you're asking those questions, you can't get enough. There's just more and more and more. And so that's what was feeding me more than anything. But what was your question again? What did you? I'm very learned. I remember saying that. And working with people. I mean, you work with people, you learn a lot about who you are as a person, but also how to help people navigate their lives, which most of us are not taught how to do. So you learn that interior landscape of a person, and I think you could help almost anyone.
I love what you said, because they expect from us to guide people in their lives, in their struggles, and sometimes we are not formed in that way.
It's not about transformation at all.
No.
I hate to make such a statement, but it's not.
So what would be that about, if it's not about transformation?
What is it about? It's about keeping people in the pews.
And money in the basket?
And money in the basket, of course, money in the basket. Yeah, I know I've told you this before. I've learned more about transformation from coaches I've worked with than I ever did from a priest.
Well, you know that we are being sarcastic right here, right? And it's in the sense that, it's about a little bit. It's about transformation. It's not just about, it's transforming the heart, connecting people with God, connecting people with their own experience, because it cannot be a disconnection. Sometimes we just want to, the human life is in one side, the spiritual life over there, the money side, maybe all of it.
And I think from a theological perspective, we've also made the afterlife the most important thing. And it's like, if you can get through this drudgery, somehow God's going to give you what you want in the afterlife. Now I look back and I'm like, that makes absolutely no sense. Why would God not want you to live a full life now, when you're actually living your life than to wait for some possibility down the road. It makes no sense.
And if you had to have and want to have a happy life, you had to have a miserable life in here.
Correct.
So that would
Correct.
be the reward.
Yes. If I get 80 years of misery, maybe God will give me eternity.
Exactly.
Great.
And sometimes we don't preach about that. We don't talk about that because sometimes
That doesn't fit the mold, the box.
the standards.
Yeah.
And when I was transitioning, or before that, I was in a parish that, I was trying to be a young guy, cool priest, basically, yes. And I like to do that. Plus, and somehow I like to be the center of the attention. And there's not a secret for anyone.
You've done a video on it.
Of course, of course. It's all about me. Come on. No, not today. Today's about Marty. But people expect that behavior. You should dress in black.
Mm-hmm.
I was not dressing in black. Sometimes I don't even, dress as a
Now
class.
you're like total opposite.
And
You have bright
pink.
color.
Oh yeah, I like it because I like to be seen. No, I'm kidding, but this is serious. And they expect that you talk in one way, that you preach in this way, and when you don't feel that mold, people struggle. But it's not their fault; it's our fault because we form them to be in that way. We teach them to have these expectations from us. But people, your friends, struggle when you step down from ministry and had these questions, or because when I saw you stepping down, I actually learned that it was 6 months already. I didn't know that you were out ministry.
Yeah, I mean, I would add to that because when I did leave, my father then died 6 months later. And I had heard from a number of people that said they had no idea that I was gone. I'm like, yeah, because it was never said, it was never announced or anything.
Mm-hmm. Which
to this day it hasn't. I just fell off the face of the earth.
And it's I'm talking about struggles alive, repeating myself, but when I left, it was public, and of course, people made those assumptions, and I made that clear. You can watch one of my videos of my transition to a secular world. But first of all, they think that you have something to do sexually with someone, mm-hmm. that you are in love with someone.
You're a deviant.
Exactly. But they never think about, maybe you discovered that that's not the life for you. Mm-hmm. And we all can change, the way. That's what I like. Be transformed. And I'm just marketing my channel as well in here. But at the end is that, because if you stay in one way and you don't move forward and you don't evolve, then what are you doing with your life? And I think that's what I admire in you and sharing with us what you're doing right now, because it's a way of transformation. And I wish that the people in the pews as well, and some of our priest friends, at least for me, the few that I have right now, because it's like, and I always had to mention this, it's like when a toilet explodes, you had to run away so the shit won't get to you.
Right. Don't let it touch me.
Exactly. That's what happened with my friends, or with the one that I talked that they were my friends. They ran away. And as your friends and your family and your brother priest, that we love to talk about brotherhood. Oh my gosh, my brother priest. And then it's something that struggle with you, and you did something. Like in my case, I did something wrong. Did anyone call to say, do you need anything? I know you screwed up, but do you need anything? No one of you. So stop talking about brotherhood you don't apply in your life. But by the way, that's not the point. And the point in here is,
I did have a couple, but that lived with me, who knew me well, and I will say, a number of friends never questioned that I had left. They questioned how I was able to do it for as long as I did.
Well,
because they also knew that I thought different and I lived different than what they had become accustomed to. And so they knew all along that I didn't fit into that mold. And it was just a matter of me getting to that point.
Well, it's a great point. And I don't know if you remember well, we lived together for about what 4 months. Once when I was in transition to be a in a pastoral year, it didn't work out well for us because it was not a good match, I guess. But I learned a lot, and it's okay to say no. It's okay to express yourself. But we are getting sometimes in a point that we had to be political correct. We don't want to hurt anyone, and sometimes people get upset because we make or you make a decision with your life. Someone make a decision for my life, but believe me, at this point, I'm happy. And I don't give a shit anymore. I'm happy because I'm making my own choices. I'm happy because I am sharing my faith in a different way, and I have that freedom. Which, how do you see your freedom right now, or your happiness? What is your sense of happiness right now? Now that you are not having that pressure that you were talking about at the beginning.
Yeah, and I don't know if the pressure ever totally leaves just because of the world we live in and the culture that we live in. There's always pressure to conform in some ways. I'm thankful for the coach that I've had since September because he's really helped me to work through a lot of it. Has no religious background and nothing, but has taught me a great deal about transformation. And it's learning to say yes to that voice over all the other voices that want to tell me how I should live. And there are still some that want to tell me how I should live. Go get a job, go do this. And that's not the right path. So it's, yeah, no, I mean, I still see myself as someone who wants to serve. I think it's always going to be about service to me, about servant leadership, because it always was. It always has been, just in a very different capacity. That doesn't mean if someone told me that they were struggling with their faith, I've taught it, I've lived it, I've been through it. I would have no issue talking to that person to try to help them navigate whatever it was they were going through in their life. Because I know it so well. As I said earlier, if I become curious about something, I become obsessed about it and will learn everything I possibly can about it. And it's no different with learning the human condition and how people operate and how people live, and helping them navigate beyond, where you don't have to live with regrets, you don't have to live with the pain and all that, the obstacles we create for ourselves, and just to be yourself. It's weird at first, it's different because it's not the norm.
Yes, and that's okay to struggle with your faith. It's okay to struggle with the church. That's okay. And sometimes we have
question the people that don't.
Yeah, that is so true. So now I'm curious about jumping from another subject. Who do you listen to? Because, like, I know this is a really broad question. Because well, I'm not talking about God in this case, but sometimes we go to YouTube and we have these specific people that we watch. He watched my YouTube channel too, so that's good. So, but who do you listen to? Some people listen to their spiritual director, the coach, etc., etc. But do you have like any? You don't have to name anyone, but do you have any person or any sites that you follow, that you listen, and why?
I mean, I still have a spiritual director. I've had the same woman for I don't know how many years at this point, more than 10 probably, and continue to go to her. My coach, as I said, and then my coach has pointed me to different authors and writers over the course. And the one that I kept going back to was Parker Palmer, Quaker. Because two of his books really struck me, and early on in the pandemic I listened to them out. I do a lot of listening of audiobooks. His one book is about the courage to teach, and the other one is Let Your Life Speak. And Let Your Life Speak is very much about discerning those voices in your life and how he struggles with that himself and how he got to where he was. Beyond that, it's typically just authors. I've listened to a lot on finances because we don't learn anything about finances either.
But you had to administer a parish. So you had to.
Like $1 million budget. Thankfully, I always had people that knew what they were doing. So a lot of it's through authors that my coach will refer me to.
You just mentioned something, and I hope that if you are watching, we don't have to know everything, but the good leader, and that's something that I have learned, and I would like to call myself as a leader as well, because in some way we have been formed to be that. The good leader find good people who help you for the things that
Absolutely.
you don't know.
Yeah.
And I know when
because sometimes you have to follow. I have to follow there and trust them that they know better than I do.
Well, I remember how many times we sat down to have a finance committee in St. Anne's in Hagerstown, and you were doing all these new ways to conduct the parish, to take the parish in a different road, and that was very motivational and also a learning process for you, even for you, because I remember
first time as a pastor.
Correct. First time as a pastor, a young pastor, because you're still young, you know.
Very young.
We are young. We are young. So, Marty, what would you say to people? And I think that would be one of my last questions. What would you say to people that are like us or like you, because we are in a different path right now, that struggles when they are in a leadership position, in a pastoral position, ministry position? What would you say to them in terms of discernment, in terms of getting to be truthful to themselves?
I could only say what has worked for me, obviously. I had to learn, so the process for me has been, and my coach would back me up on this, there are a lot, I like to write, sometimes I have to write out what I'm thinking because it just kind of gets jumbled and confused within me. And so the way I've learned to become authentic to myself is to write it out, but whatever I wrote, I would never read it back. I would always send it to him. Now, whether he reads it is totally up to him, but I at least know that person. I'm allowing myself to use him to be accountable to, because it's very hard to be too accountable to yourself all the time, because there are things you're going to miss. We all have blind spots. We all have shadow work we have to do, things we like to ignore about ourselves. And so I try to have that person who I can be accountable to and who's going to push back at me and say, well, what about this? And what about this? And for me, that's the way I hold myself accountable. I learned to hold myself accountable by being accountable to someone else. It's probably the way I would describe it.
And for doing that, you cannot be afraid to be challenged, because in that process you had to be challenged by that person.
Yeah, and I mean, I've never worried about being challenged. I like to be challenged. It was always, is that person going to judge me? It was much more about judgment, rejection, than it ever was about challenge. Yeah, bring it on. I'll challenge me whatever way you want. If I get bored, I get bored. And even when I was in ministry, in active ministry, I moved a lot because I got bored. It wasn't challenging enough for me. Because it's the same thing over and over and over again, and it didn't work.
And you just said something, is being judged is one of the, for myself, is one of the biggest challenges. I don't give a shit about what you're gonna, challenge me, but I do care, and mainly because of my personality, I care what you think about me, because that's gonna take you to that judgmental way of seeing things, and I'm afraid of that. And that might say something about, maybe we are insecure about ourselves, but we are insecure about.
Absolutely. I don't know anyone that isn't. If they're honest with themselves. But I was just reading something this morning about it, that from the time we're infants, we learn what works and what doesn't work. How do I receive love? How don't I receive love? What is this person? So we're conditioned from the time we're born to think that way. And so we're going to do anything we can to avoid what we believe is going to bring rejection or judgment, even though in turn we end up rejecting and judging ourselves in the process.
Even
That's the paradox of the whole thing.
and even more hard than other people judge us.
Absolutely.
And the other day you said something to me that stick with me, and we were talking about I was talking about forgiveness in one of my videos, and you said, well, the most important thing is that you forgive yourself, and it pairs with what you were saying, because we don't forgive ourselves sometimes, and it's just so difficult for us to move forward and to be transformed.
You won't move forward.
Yes.
If you don't have that.
All right. Well, we can just sit here and talk for the rest of the day, but we had to move forward
With the day?
with the day.
Can I add one more point?
Oh, definitely.
Because it's a point that I've thought about often in this process of transition in my life. We haven't talked about Bible or anything like that, but the one thing I've thought of this often, the very last thing Jesus tells the disciples is go. He never tells them to stay. Don't hang around. Don't spend your life here.
Even to
Go.
Judas.
Yeah, exactly. Go. And I've thought a lot about that. And I'm like, would Jesus ever anticipate what we've allowed it to become when the final message was go? Because staying was comfortable, it's secure, I'm taken care of, it's all that stuff. But then you lose faith in the process. There's no faith in security.
Now you're here. It's go. Go and do something better with your life. Go and get motivated. Go get your ass out of your seat and do something different. Don't be afraid.
Turn off the video already.
No. No, I want to really thank you for accepting my invitation to be transformed.
Thanks for inviting me to this beautiful place.
To this beautiful
roller
place
coaster in the background.
Yeah, sorry we cannot say that, but yeah, it's a beautiful roller coaster over there. Thank you for watching. Thank you for subscribing again. The red button where it says subscribe, because I want to keep moving forward, transforming people with my experience, with someone else's experience. We always have something to say, something to share. Remember, be healthy, stay healthy, and help someone to be healthy. And just let the skies be the limit for your dreams. Don't allow anyone to limit you and to condition you. We're talking about conditioning, and we are so much conditioned by everything.
Yeah, by everyone. And I would even say, the sky's even limited.
No, even
Create
the
the
sky.
space for possibility.
Gosh, I love that. Can I steal that
That's
from
part
you?
of my why I do what I do.
All right. Create the space for possibilities. I love it. So guys and girls and gentlemen and everybody who is watching, Marty, I know there is a lot of people that watch these videos, people with faith, people with no faith. Would you say a little, invite God into this and pray for everybody who is watching? You don't have to have an Our Father, but
That's good, because I probably wouldn't. I don't even know how I would express it at this point.
okay.
Because I think it is that if you open yourself, and maybe the prayer is simply about openness, open yourself to possibility, there's a much better chance that you will experience faith in God that way than you ever will
Amen.
anywhere else.
Amen.
Be open.
Okay, be open for possibilities. So thank you so much, and I will see you soon. Subscribe.